Welcome to PR After Hours, your twice weekly cocktail of business, PR, and marketing tips hosted by me, Alex Greenwood. Every week, we bring you virtual happy hours featuring business advice from entrepreneurs and leading thinkers in PR, marketing, and business. We're going to get started in just a moment, so stick with us. Hello, listeners. It's me, Alex, from PR After Hours. I hope you're enjoying the show so far. And I wanted to talk to you just for a moment about the way I get this show right into your earbuds every week. It's because I use Anchor FM. Now, I've told you previously that I've been podcasting since 2006, back when we used stone knives and bear skins and a couple of Dixie cups and string. Anchor FM has really streamlined this and made it simpler for people who don't know the first thing about setting up a podcast or don't have, time to learn all the pro tools and stuff, because it's all right here. First thing it's important to know is it's free. There are certain tools that will allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will then distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. That's huge. Distribution is a big pain in the butt, to be honest with you, so it's really great Anchor FM can do that for you, and you're not paying hosting fees. That adds up every month. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place, so download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started, and be sure to join me in the virtual cocktail lounge on PR After Hours. Rising above the clutter in today's challenging media environment, it's crucial. It's very difficult to attain. But one of the most successful strategies is to provide what's in high demand from editors and publishers, which is quality formatted content. What is quality formatted content, you may be asking? Well, good news. We have somebody who can tell us. We have a wonderful guest today. He's a friend of mine. We're colleagues. We go back a little while, and I'm just excited to have Steve Wilson Jr. here. He has a passion for marketing, advertising, and PR, and he brings his experience to Family Features as a senior account manager with nearly 19 years of solid experience in both traditional and digital marketing and sales. He has experience in working in multiple types of media, including radio, TV, and print. And now he's in public relations here in the virtual lounge with the rest of us PR folks and PR folk fans. And so his experience allows him to reference a diverse background of examples and experiences that can be used to benefit his clients. And spoiler alert, I actually was in the client seat on something we're going to talk about in this conversation, and I frankly have some surprising things to tell you about it that you're definitely going to want to hear. But Steve Wilson, welcome to the virtual lounge.
Thank you for asking me to be on. I appreciate it.
Well, you know what? Besides the fact that I just plain like you, and I always enjoy speaking with you, but it's just that you're doing something at Family Features that is so beneficial. If I'm wearing my PR consultant hat, it's beneficial, and I'm always sharing it with my clients saying, this is a good option for you. But if I put on my author hat, I found that it's a really beneficial way to get your work out there and rise above the clutter, as I mentioned. So, Steve, maybe it'd be good if we started out just to kind of explain to the people who maybe have not heard of Family Features, what is it that you guys do?
Okay, I can definitely do that. So Family Features, we've been in business since 1974. We are a branded content development and syndication company. So what people a lot remember or link us to is being a mat release provider back in those days, but we have kind of transformed into doing some different things that include like we mentioned, the branded content, the formatted content, as well as, video development and distribution, and also doing a lot in the social media side with our consumer. We have 2 consumer websites. So basically, what we do is we help clients get their, either whether it be their books or their brands, get them exposure nationally. We have a network of over 4,000 editors and publishers that come to us for quality content. One of the things that really hasn't changed over the years is that quality content is in high demand. And that's one of the things that we can provide to these editors, and with working with partners, on the other side, like authors and also brands and other PR agents.
Yeah, the rumors of the death of print publications is a little premature, I would say. Yes. Let's just knock that down, because I can already hear some of my PR friends out there or marketing friends out there saying, yeah, but I don't know about that. Well, here's the thing, though. While you have an impressive, as you said, network of print providers that you work with, you also do stuff online like crazy, and you do wonderful video. There's just so much dimension to the content you can help a brand create.
Right. Yeah. And one of the things that I will say is definitely when people say that print is declining, there is some truth in that. It is declining, but the thing that a lot of people don't talk about is a lot of these print publications or a lot of these newspapers specifically are having digital editions and digital outlets. So they're still producing content, they're still producing news. And some of the largest news and media sites in most cities are from the newspapers, are from the newspaper team. So even though the actual print itself is declining, a lot of the publications are continuing to grow and build quality content when it comes to their digital editions. I know for one with McClatchy, that's the case where they are actually increasing in their digital editions and their websites. But we also do not it's not just publications, that newspapers that we work with. We also work with a lot of magazine outlets. We also work with a lot of digital news websites, and digital publications as well. So the landscape is changing, but I agree with you. I think that people saying that print is either not important or is dying, it's a little premature to say that when there's still a lot of these newspapers that are doing the reporting and creating content for the individual cities. And in a lot of cases, the local newspaper or local newsletter that comes in some of these smaller communities, that's kind of like the expert of what's going on. So they're still very relevant and important.
Yeah, I mean, diversification of the types of exposure you get, I think, is the bedrock of what you should be doing with your branding and marketing dollars these days. What I like about what Family Features has to offer on this is that, like you just described, you're not just putting all your eggs in one channel basket. You're not just print necessarily. You can be print, you can be video, and then, as you said, Steve, that a lot of newspapers have wisely decided, oh, we need to really amp up our online presence, which means a lot of newspapers kind of operate like a TV station these days. They have cameras and live shots, and they cover news that way. They kind of, the old "stay in your lane" does not apply anymore. It's, and to the other side of that, TV stations. How many TV stations can you name that don't have an online presence of some sort? A website that has written stuff. Like I've given interviews constantly throughout the years. In the past 5 years, though, sometimes the video doesn't show up, but a transcript of the interview does. So what I like to tell people is open your mind to this and try to think about the ways branded content can be to your advantage. So Steve, what's one of the top things, if you were just like, if you were riding an elevator up with somebody running a brand, what are the top couple of advantages you would say to them about doing branded content?
I would say being able to diversify, like we were talking about, diversify the different platforms and mediums that you can get your content to is one. Two, with doing branded content, it is more cost effective than doing straight advertising. There's a lot of reach that we can get for a lot less than what you would do if you were trying to get the same kind of reach with advertising dollars. And three, I would say being able to be creative and think outside of the box when it comes to really showcasing what you can do. And then we have a really talented editorial team that thinks outside of the box and will help actually craft those messages, because a lot of challenges people have is how to create that content. I don't know how to create the content. I have this product, or I have this book or something like this. How can I make it interesting? Well, that's one of the things that branded content can help you do.
The whole premise of PR about earned media. Now, this is not obviously exactly earned media, but it looks a lot more like earned media, and it's not deceptive by any means. Don't get me wrong, but it has, in my experience, in my opinion, my professional judgment, you're going to have consumers of this information are going to see it, and they're going to take away from it less of, oh, that's an ad, and more of, whoa, that's like some that's some third-party approbation of what this product or service is doing. And part of that is because it just, as Steve, as you just said, it doesn't look like an advertisement. It doesn't just kind of come at you as, hey, sale, sale, sale. It's more about, you provide these things, and I would like to talk about in a moment all the types of instruments you use, like roundups and stuff like that, to explain that to
Okay.
folks. And we'll, of course, folks, there'll be links in the show notes to family features and some other things, just so you can understand, get a better visual of this. But I like the idea that you can also, like in a roundup, for example, be included in like a package that goes out. And I
Mhm.
want to talk about that in just a moment. But Steve, do you find yourself when you work with a new client who might have been a little skeptical? Are there certain things they usually come back at you with in short order? I mean, I understand, and everybody should understand, there's no magic bullet out there. You got marketing and PR is a marathon, not a sprint usually. But are there things that your customers come back to you with that are they're excited about?
Yeah, actually, a lot of times they come back with, if they've never used us before or used this kind of tactic before, they're a lot of times excited and surprised with the type of publications that they end up, being included in,
Yeah.
and the different ways. Because one of the things that I love about what I do and what we do is that when editors come to our site for content, they're putting it in, their print publications and some of their online publications as just a regular content story. So it isn't, in a lot of ways, it isn't set up under an advertorial or something like that. It's set up in as an actual article. So there are some situations where it is listed as advertorial, but when it comes to the earned network and understanding what earned means, because a lot of times it's surprising to my clients that actual people, the editors, come to our site and they choose to put the content on their site. We don't pay them to do it, and they don't pay us for the content. They choose it. So that's when we say it's truly earned content or earned media, is because they are doing it on their own.
Thank you. As a former newspaper editor, I'm glad you brought that up. There's something we used to call, when I was an newspaper editor in a small town, is called the news hole. You had certain pages you had to have content to build around the advertising, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this goes back to the beginning in the 70s of Family Features. You and there's some other syndicated services would send out these slicks, right? And we would
Right.
we would literally, folks, this is like really some prehistoric stuff here, but we would get these slicks and we would wax them and cut them, and we would stick them on big hunks of paper the size of the newspaper, and then photograph that, and then that would make the plate that we could spin through the drum that would print the newspaper. I know that sounds really, it's just a step up from getting a chisel and making some hieroglyphics. But it's so
Right.
true, because Steve, you and I had this conversation when we first met. We were talking about this. I can't tell you how many times Family Features saved my bacon back when I was a newspaper editor, because it was me and a couple of stringers and a couple of photographers that were contractors. So basically, if I had a hold of film and I couldn't find something that would fit, and I couldn't find something that was appropriate, I had to write something. And sometimes there was just, deadline days. My eyes were bloodshot, and I could not even think of writing something, and I could pull out something like Family Features and go, wow, these are some really quality stories here that the readers actually respond to. Last anecdote about that, I can still remember one time, and I don't remember exactly who wrote it, and but it was a feature. It was one of the Family Features pulls we got, and it was a feature story. I think it was on something like, summer grilling or something like that, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I got more letters and calls. This is back before everybody was on. There was no social media. I got more letters and actual phone calls asking for reprints of that, because I think there was a great recipe in there. And somebody said, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
my aunt said there was a great recipe." So I know I'm going on and rattling on, but I just want everybody to understand that there really is some wonderful content here. So Steve, I thought this would be something we should get right into, though. I am a customer. Let's talk about my experience here. So you got a hold of me, and I write mystery books, and I just told you, I was like, well, we're on the seventh book in the series. Eighth book is coming out. What at the time I said next year, which will be this year, 2021. But I really love to kind of drum up interest in the series again by maybe pushing out something on the first book if I can. When we talked about it, you said something about let's do a roundup, and I'll let you explain what that is in just a moment. But what I was going to do is try to do a roundup of just authors, and I tried to get some of my author clients, well, they aren't clients necessarily, but authors who've been on my podcast to join me. And I had a tough time getting anybody to chip in. Also, it was probably a little last minute for some of them, and that's understandable. But Steve and I went ahead and made it where we at least put one of my books in there with a roundup at holiday time with some other brands. So, Steve, I'm going to I'm going to stop yakking and let you, if you don't mind, just explain to folks what it is you did with Pilot's Cross.
Okay, definitely. So we have one of the products that we offer are roundups, and which are similar. Basically, is what is a gift guide. So we were doing a holiday gift guide, and the gift guide generally contains 4 to 5, maybe sometimes 6 different clients that are non-competitive, that are all placed on a formatted full page type of article, and it includes a 75-word description of what that product is, and then also a URL to how to find that product, and then a high res photo of that product as well. So one of the things that was that's unique about it is that you are able to kind of share the cost, of this full page, and then you can get some full page placements. Because I know for the holiday gift guide that Alex was in, it got some one of the big publications that it was placed in was the Chicago Tribune. So you're getting some of these placements, and you're getting, like a million print impressions. You're getting like 100 million online impressions, so it's getting it out there. And again, it's at a fraction of the cost of what it would be if you were trying to do advertising for that same type of, exposure.
Chicago Tribune, forget about it. I wouldn't even, give me a break. I couldn't have afforded that in a million years.
Right. And so we have a lot of, and then also some of the magazines that put that content in it, because a lot of them do include holiday gift guides and things like that. So it worked out really well. And one of the things that we're finding is that books and things like that really go really well in the network, because a lot of the consumers are reading these publications, are familiar with reading, so or like to read. So it's like you're talking to preaching to the choir, as they say. But but it's one of those things where it's like it's almost a no-brainer for us, to where we are actually doing some different things to make sure that we talk to more authors and more publishing companies, because I know I have a couple of publishing companies that are clients that are utilizing us. One is doing their own roundup, half-page roundup for Mother's Day, and getting ready to do one for Father's Day, because it's the Mother's Day is doing so well. So it's definitely one of those things that it's like, to some of our clients, some of the PR firms we work with, we're kind of like that silent weapon that they kind of keep in their back pocket, and nobody knows about except for them.
I just, in all disclosure, AGPR, my PR agency, is basically in an affiliate relationship with Family Features, in the sense that we have an agreement that we're working together on these things. So if you're already tempted to learn more, which you should be, again, check the links in the show notes. You can talk to me, or you can talk to Steve. Steve's going to know way more about it than I am about how it works. But if you want to just chat with me, because we know each other, I want you to get a hold of me. We did so well on placements with this thing that I was in, this roundup. It was impressive. We had circulation and audience, like you said, that was over 1 million, right? Of and that was huge. Well over 1,000 actual program placements. There's just so much going on here. And this is, by the way, this was just a roundup, a print roundup. There was not video attached to it, or any of the bells and whistles with the social media or anything like that. This was a very impressive roundup, and it did well. But let me get to the figure that I think my author friends are listening for. Okay, so we put this out. So Steve, this thing was released in early November 2020. And the close date was around the 13th of January. And it was made available, as you said, to all these newspapers and other members of your network nationwide. And it had really good pickup. So the question is, folks, how did it do for me? Well, Pilot's Cross, which is a 10 or 11-year-old book, but it's a new book to people who haven't read the series, right? So I put that in there because it's the first book in the series. I just remember that I did this. Steve, don't be mad at me, but I remember we did this. And all of a sudden, I'm looking at my royalty reports, because I can check, especially on Amazon for ebooks and stuff. I can go and just go backstage and check daily how they're doing. All of a sudden, I had a huge spike over the holidays. And I was just over the moon, because I know I'd done a couple of little promos with Amazon, but usually those things, and authors who are on Amazon will know, those can be okay. Those can be helpful. They can raise awareness. But I'm talking about, well, I'll just get to it. I had about an 85 or 90% increase over last year. I'll be like the people on Twitter. Let that sink in. I had You see that all the time. I'm like, oh God, here we go. 85 to 90% increase in sales over previous year. Now, I'm not a best-selling author, but I want to tell you something. That will put a little spring in your step if you've been dealing with some fairly moribund sales for a while. It's done so in a way that I'm constantly thinking about getting budget together and trying to get other authors together to do a roundups at other times of the year, like Steve's talking about. But Steve, were you at all surprised when I came at you and I was so elated with it, or were you just kind of sitting back and waiting? Tell the truth.
Oh, so truthfully, truthfully, I was waiting because honestly, I figured that you kind of knew what we did, but I knew that when you actually were included and you start to see the results, that I kind of assumed, and that was bad on my part. I assumed that you would come back and be like, okay, what did I do again? And what was this? So I was kind of thinking that something like that would occur. I was hoping that it would occur because a lot of times it literally it takes that first time for somebody to experience it to then be like, oh, well, why haven't I been doing this? And I've had a lot of customers that have said that. It's like, well, why didn't I know about this before? Well, before it was like mat releases, and most, I'd say 60 to 70% of people now that's in the PR world don't even know what a mat release is anymore. So
Right.
but when you talk about branded content, it kind of changes the scenario there. But no, I kind of figured that something would happen, and when we've had actually such good success with other projects that are specifically even just authors, because what we want to do, what we would love to do, and I hadn't actually even talked to you about this, but if we can get more content, more consistent content with authors and things like that, we would even be able to create a section on our editor site that's kind of like the book corner, like this month's book of the month kind of thing. So that's something, because it's one of those things that we kind of have stumbled on and was like, okay, this actually will be really, really great because our editors are loving it. The editors and publishers are loving it.
And he goes back to what you said. That's so it's so simple, but of course it's in its simplicity. There's an elegance there, which is, by the way, if people are reading newspapers and magazines, they read books.
Right, right, and even, sorry to interrupt you, but even like
No.
reading, there's a lot more people that are reading online, and we're in that space too. So one of the big things that we've realized is that cookbooks is definitely,
Ooh.
we would be perfect for them because we can actually be publishing the recipes that they've spent time and money to create, where we can get exposure for those recipes and even do recipe videos that will get also print placements, which is kind of crazy, but cookbooks do really well in our network.
I was just sliding into that. You also have a couple of websites that you put a lot of these wonderful videos, culinary.net and elivingtoday.com. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So we've had these sites for I think probably close to 15 years now, and they're consumer facing sites. That's one of the things that one of the jewels that we have that we're able to utilize, because when we do our social programs, they are based off of promoted from the platforms from those consumer facing websites. So instead of us saying that your book is you saying your book is great, now
Right.
your book is great, compliments or courtesy of elivingtoday.com. So you get that third party endorsement when it comes to it. So it's really important when we are actually promoting content that we have these sites that we're able to do it, because they end up being kind of their own little consumer magazines as well. But now you have a place to actually, you can put your content will go. So they've been really, and we're doing a lot of things that are giving them a personality. So like I was saying earlier, we would have like the book corner, on the editor site. Well, we would also do something like that on our elivingtoday.com, that we can do that, or if you had a cookbook, we'd be promoting that on culinary.net. So there's a lot of different things that we can do and be creative.
Yeah, publicists listening to the show in particular, on the author side, Steve's got this great idea, and I'm working very hard and going to double my efforts to try to get more authors under the tent here, working with family on this, because I believe in that. And I think that's a great idea, and not only is it great marketing for your book, but it's also, frankly, it's a boost for our profession. It's a boost for writing. It's a
Hmm.
boost for publishing. That's huge, and we need all the friends we can get out there. Our newspaper brethren are suffering, but trust me, it's hard out there for a writer. But
Right. Right.
but Steve, in the moments we have left, we've only scratched the surface. I know, but definitely we can do great printed things that are sent out. We have some great online stuff. We have some great video stuff. And by the way, I'll probably embed in the show notes, if that's okay, Steve. One of the you know me, I love the culinary.net and the e-living today stuff. I might embed a couple of videos with the show notes page on this, if that's okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's totally fine.
But there's formatted premium release options you have. But
Hmm.
the last thing I say is, visit your website, which is.
It is familyfeatures.com. So FAMILYFEATURES.com.
You can go there, and
Mouthful.
then you can get a hold of Steve that way. You know how to get a hold of me. There'll be links in the show notes. But before we go, what I was just going to say though, that there are so many things you can do here. Let's say you're a PR person or your brands aren't particularly into books or something. Steve, can you just give us some examples, like on a rolling basis, of the types of roundups and the types of campaigns that are available? You've already mentioned Mother's Day and Father's Day. Is it pretty much you offering some packages for all the big holidays, or what else do you do?
Well, we can do. I mean, we have some scheduled roundups that we do every year. Like one of the ones that is coming up next, as far as roundup, is a back to school roundup. But we also do just individual projects. We have everything from a basic unformatted release to half page formatted to the full page feature, which is what we started doing in 74. So we have different ways. And like I was saying earlier, we have a great we have a great content team that can help develop ideas on, what would make sense and what we could do. So if you wanted to do something around back to school, we could. Or if you wanted to do just something that was around, educating people about, because we had one of my clients that actually had a book that was on driving traffic to your website, and we're able to do something with that and do it very well. So we have, I mean, we have three categories that we really work in: food and beverage, home and garden, and also lifestyle. Lifestyle includes everything from finance to health, and those different kind of things. Anything that's not food or home and garden, really. So we are able to pretty much work with anyone, but we do specialize in more B2C kind of situation, talking to
Hmm.
consumers. So if you're trying
Right.
to reach consumers, then we have a way that we can work with you.
So Steve alluded to earlier, if you in your own shop, maybe it happens, folks. You get a little spent. Maybe you've had a client for a couple of years and it's just hard to be fresh again. Give Steve's people a call. They'll find a fresh angle for you. I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's. Have you found that, right, Steve? You had some brands that have said, we've done a nice job getting going here, but we're maybe at a creative block. Maybe you could help.
Yeah, we actually have one of my favorites that I've had in the past was a food client, and it was called beef sheet. So it was sushi, but it was actually made with, like lunch meat kind of thing. So it was very interesting. We actually did a recipe video for it. I think you actually have this on your site, Alex. But we did it, and they were actually really, really surprised on how well it performed. But it was something that was different, and something that, people weren't used to seeing. So yeah.
I know I'm pounding the drum a little bit here, but I do believe in this. It's worked for me. Family Features creates and delivers branded content to millions of consumers using digital, print, and social media. They've got this comprehensive network of more than 4,000 digital, print, and social media partners that can deliver some really good results. Take it from me. No, I'm not a bestseller, but guess what? Steve, I didn't even say this, and this is anecdotal. I know I can't prove it. I think seriously, since that first book kind of got into hands nationwide again, I did start to see, and I still am seeing, an uptick in the rest of the series throughout the year since. So what are we in? We're in
Mm.
almost in May. My sales, they've definitely increased. So I'm a big fan. Steve Wilson, thanks so much for being here. Folks, check the show notes at prafterhours.com. And this will probably be actually shared on Mysterious Goings On as well at mgopod.com. Either way, if you can't find Steve, you know how to find me, and you can learn a lot more.
Appreciate you having us on. We definitely want to work, with folks, especially authors. So we got some special things that we can offer you guys. So just hit, Alex or me up.
Oh, you know what that means? Looks like it's last call here at your virtual lounge for PR news, views, and interviews. We'll keep it short and sweet and just remind you, if you like the show, there's many ways you can help us keep it going, not the least among which is to rate this podcast. Simply go to the show notes at prafterhours.com or wherever you're getting this podcast and click on the link. ratethispodcast.com/after, and it will take you to Apple Podcasts and a couple other places very easily. One click, you write your review, it's done. Can't tell you enough how important it is to get ratings on those sites so that we can build our audience and keep bringing you the kind of information you need every week for your business. Also, don't forget, if you want to sponsor the show, give us a tip in the virtual tip jar or ask a question. There are links in the show notes. Well, I think it's time that I cleaned up and closed up for this edition of PR After Hours here on Anchor FM.